All right, I'm going to start again. This is going to be the third time. So Chloe is trying to buy the house in New Braunfels, the 169 Woods End property, and I thought that the Morby method may be a good way of doing it because it would allow her to try to buy it no money down if possible. It has to cash flow, and it barely cash flows when you look at the oven. So real quickly, the list price is $321,000, and basically your first loan would come from a private money. It'd be about 70%. This could always go up later in life, but right now, when you don't have a real income producer and everything, they're only going to give you about 70%, and it's going to be a debt service. It's going to basically be a collateralized, no recourse type loan. The property is basically the loan. And then you're also going to look for a transactional type lender to put up the 30%. And so the transactional lender, the 30%, is going to be about $96,000, and the private money is going to be about $120,000. So in the first deal, okay, the total price is going to be the $321,000, and so that's going to be $321,000 purchase price. Okay, and so the way that it's going to be is that $225,000 is going to go to the seller. $96,000 is going to go and be held into escrow. Okay, so it's received by the seller, but it remains in escrow. So the seller is going to get his full nut of $321,000 to seller. Now, the seller is going to release this. Okay, so that, and now we're going to do the second transaction. And we've got to follow the money, okay? So in the second transaction, the escrow amount is released back to the buyer. Okay? The seller gives that back to the buyer. And then, in addition to that, he is going to I believe do a promissory note. Hang on. And then this, from the buyer, it goes to the transactional lender and pays it off. Pay off. Okay, so it gives it back, but we wind up doing it. So the transactional lender is paid off from the buyer. And now for the remaining portion of it, the seller gets a promissory note. And let's say that's going to be for the $96,000. Okay. Over here. And it's going to be $50,000 in buyer cost. So that's going to be $146,000 promissory note. Now when we look at over here, we're going to basically say, what have we really done? So the seller, his net is going to be, this is the buyer's cost and everything, is going to be $225 from the private lender, and $146,173. This is a promissory note. And of this amount, because we only really owed that, $50,000 goes to the buyer to cover his cost and the cost to close the transaction. So how much did it cost? The buyer, this is a no money down deal. But there are two transactions. The first one is the property is moved. And so how are we going to do that? Well, let's see if we can do it here. If we would, okay, let's just turn this over and do it a little differently. No, I'll mess everything up on this side. So this is, I think you can basically see everything right there on how it does. The seller basically gets a promissory note for the 96 plus the money that is going to cover the cost of the buyer, and he's going to do it in a promissory note. So this $50,000 that he gives is really coming from up here, okay, and then he gets a note. So he actually, but we include that in the note. So even though the real money comes from here, he hasn't had to go out of his pocket. The buyer basically will get the extra $50,000 or whatever number that happens to be. But this is kind of the flow of the diagram for the Morby method here. All right, let me stop this one, and then we'll talk about other ways that we can kind of do things. Bye.